hello friends, and welcome to Ariel's Twilight Years, how to be a really old model. I'm in Loughborough this week and I just had a cancellation at short notice, so I've got a morning in my travel lodge where I don't actually have to work, so naturally I'm working, but only for YouTube, and everyone knows that doesn't count. Recently, I was in an online debate with Mr. Girl / Max Karson, and it was about ethical porn. Now, his position was that he'd stopped watching any pornography at all because he was worried that he might sometimes be watching someone who'd been coerced into it, and he wouldn't know whether he was watching someone who was actually willing as a performer or not. And it was a very interesting debate, but we never really got onto a subject that I would have liked to discuss, which is, given that I hope most of the people who watch my work, for example, do have concerns about welfare of performers, what can you actually do as a consumer to ensure that you are watching performers who are actually happy with what they're doing? So in other words, how can you consume porn as ethically as possible? Now, with porn, just like any other industry, there is always the possibility that the person providing the product you're consuming is not 100% in love with their job. This is true of porn, this is true of getting a coffee in Starbucks, this is true of having a meal cooked for you in a restaurant, it's true of getting a massage or a personal training session. We never know really what's going on in the lives of the people who are serving us and providing us with products. Max Karson's argument was that in porn, it's so much more important that people aren't being coerced or being put in positions that they're not comfortable in, because there is something different about doing something sexual for work and doing something non-sexual for work. Now, I do not actually accept that argument. I think sex work is work, and all of the things that can go wrong in a non-sex work job can also go wrong in a sex work job, and most of the things that can go wrong in sex work can also happen in non-sex work. I don't accept that argument, but there are certainly ways to reassure yourself that the porn that you are consuming has been produced by people who are happy doing the job. So here are my ways to ensure you are consuming porn in an ethical fashion. 1. The first one is very simple: pay. If you pay for your porn, specifically if you pay the creator you are watching, then you know that he or she is being rewarded for their labour, and you also know that you're not watching work that has been stolen from the performer or the producer and re-uploaded by someone who doesn't have consent. The majority of people consuming porn are not paying for it, and so the majority of people are not choosing the most ethical way of consuming porn. But if you're watching this, you're very likely to be one of the people who does pay me for my product, and I thank you very much for it, because I have always said that although piracy is certainly a threat to our industry, as long as there are a few hundred honest people supporting any one performer, those performers will survive. So thank you if you're one of those people. 2, assuming you're going to pay, generally paying an individual performer or an individual producer rather than a larger company ensures that more of your money is going to the actual performers rather than to shareholders or to managers or to CEOs. I've got nothing against large companies that produce porn, because after all, most large companies started as individuals, so there is nothing inherently bad about being a large porn company. But if you want your money to go directly to performers or cottage industry producers, seek out their work at source rather than purchasing their work via a larger platform. So broadly speaking, for example, buying a video directly from a bondage producer would give them more money than buying the same video from a platform like Clips for Sale or ManyVids. Obviously, those platforms are very convenient for customers, and I've got nothing against people using them at all. And in fact, I don't have my own website. So if you're buying my videos from Clips for Sale or ManyVids, you are supporting me as ethically as it is possible to support me. But if you can join people's membership sites instead, then that is a great way of ensuring that the person you want to support is getting most of your money. Number 3, if you are a fan of a particular model, but you want to buy work of her from different producers, which is a perfectly legitimate thing to do, then if you want to ensure you are buying the work that she was especially enthusiastic about producing, look for the producers that she goes back to multiple times. This is something I do when I'm vetting potential producers for myself to go and work with. I look at whether they work with every model once or whether those models go back time and time again to work with that producer, because that tells me the producer is probably doing something right in terms of how they are treating the model, because especially for a successful professional model, she will not be going back multiple times to someone who is making her feel uncomfortable or exploited in any way. 4. Another thing that I do when I'm looking at whether I want to work with a producer for the first time or not, I look at how they interact with the models they already work with on social media. And you can do the same. If you see that a model clearly has a positive ongoing relationship, or even like a friendship with a producer or photographer, you can probably be pretty confident that if you buy work from that producer of that model, you'll be consuming work that she was having a lovely time producing with him. 5. This is a controversial one and is likely to make some of my fellow creators a bit pissed off. But there are fan pages and there are fan pages. There are fan pages such as on OnlyFans that are run by an individual model. So she is creating the content, it is her copyright. If you message her, she will be replying to you. And there are fan pages that are run by corporations or which are largely run by assistants. So for example, if you are looking at an OnlyFans page that offers 24/7 sexting, that's very unlikely to be the actual creator sexting with you. So if you want to give your money to a creator who is running a fan page, you can probably be more confident that that fan page reflects who that model actually is if she has not handed it over to a corporation. Now, I'm not saying just because a model has handed over her OnlyFans, for example, to a corporation, I think that means that she is not happy with the work she is doing, but it is practically impossible if she's running the page for herself that she's doing anything she doesn't want to do on there. Whereas if she has signed her page over to an agency, it is just possible that they are pressurising her to produce a certain kind of content. But then individual customers could theoretically be pressurising you to produce a certain type of content, and it's still up to you as an adult to just say no. So I'm not sure if that's a very good argument, really. As an ethical customer, you don't have any responsibility to the OnlyFans creator you are joining to make sure that she's happy doing her job. But that said, if she is running it all herself and it looks like a project of passion and she seems to be producing content consistently of a particular genre, that means you are probably consuming the content of someone who actually likes that stuff rather than someone who is just shooting to try to placate the market. Now, if you are a consumer who, like me, has rather specific tastes, especially if they are on the BDSM side of things, how do you know that you are watching models who really want to be going through some of the things that you want to see them doing? Well, I think a great way to do this is to look at models who very clearly demonstrate having a specific interest in a subject. For this example, I'm thinking of Zoe Ziptai, who is a model I don't know well, so I'm not just promoting her because she's my friend or anything like that. But she's called herself Zoe Ziptai. She is a bondage model. She clearly likes bondage. She's into BDSM. If you look at her social media profile, it really doesn't have much on it that isn't BDSM related. This is clearly someone with a personal investment in this subject. She is very clearly not just doing this because it was the fastest possible way to make money. She has a large collection of her own BDSM props and costumes. I would defy anyone to look at her profile, for example, and be like, oh no, that poor woman. I think she's just kind of stumbled across BDSM as a way to make money and she's just kind of putting up with it. Whereas from time to time you will see models turning up on BDSM sites who probably don't have a particularly enduring or passionate interest in the subject. That doesn't mean they're not consenting, but if you're particularly keen on making sure you are consuming porn in the most ethical possible way, then looking for the models who clearly have a genuine personal interest in the thing that you want to see them doing is a very good way to ensure that you're supporting someone who actually loves their job as opposed to tolerates their job. I think it's too high a bar to expect that everyone who provides you with a service should be loving their job. Unfortunately, under capitalism, I think that is an unreasonable expectation. But since in this genre it is possible to find people who genuinely love their jobs, you will be able to seek out a model for whom this is more than just a job, it is also a passion. If you're particularly ethically concerned, then why not do that? This is a difficult one to talk about because it potentially just makes me sound very old and sour. But if you are particularly concerned to make sure that you are only watching performers who are genuinely enthusiastic about what they're doing, then I would say try not to obsess over new faces, because when people try things out for the first time, they don't always like those things. I have done first shoots in some genres and realised during the shoot that this was the last time I was ever going to do this activity. And that's fine. Like, I still consented to it. I'm not distressed that the footage is out there, and I don't think it would be unethical of you to watch it. But on the other hand, if you are consistently looking for tags like first or never been spanked before, or first boy-girl scene, or virgin, or, God forbid, barely legal, I would say you are putting yourself in a position where you are deliberately seeking out content where you might not be watching the performer at their most comfortable ever. Whereas if you don't need to see their first time, and if you're happy to watch someone who's actually experienced and comfortable, knows what they're getting into, and is on set with thoroughly informed consent, then perhaps you will be watching people who are pretty invulnerable at that point in their career. Obviously, everyone has to start somewhere, and I'm not saying you should boycott people's first scenes, but certainly I have met producers during my career who are obsessed with working with people who are new, and some of the time I have suspected that one of the reasons for that is because they are a little easier to push around and exploit. So as a consumer, it might be worth just bearing that in mind. Whereas if someone's been doing this job for 20 years, for example, and if they're in their late 40s, they're probably very, very good at their job, and they probably enjoy it very, very much indeed. Those 20-year-old bitches should get out of my career. I'm joking. I love them. Everyone's welcome. And finally, as a consumer, if you are ordering custom videos or custom photo sets, or engaging in sexting or webcamming or anything like that with a performer, my final point is just to never, 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 never try to convert a model who has already expressed the fact that she's not interested in certain genres or certain acts. Do not try to convert her into doing those acts for you. If that's what you want, I think you should question why you are not just going to a model who has clearly already indicated that she does want to do those things. This is something I've seen over and over again through my career as a model, with photographers trying to push models who don't want to work nude, for example, into working nude, or models who don't want to be topless into working topless, or models who don't want to do boy-girl into doing boy-girl. It doesn't matter what the subject is, there will be some photographers who always want what they cannot have. And if you want to be an ethical consumer, then I would say avoiding being the sort of consumer who wants what they can't have or what they think they can't have is a really good thing. Ask yourself why you don't want to give your money to someone who actually wants to do those things, rather than having to be reluctantly persuaded into those things. Now, I totally get it. If you've got a CNC kink, I'm with you, me too, but the ethical way to scratch that itch is to have someone role play reluctance rather than actually be reluctant. So those were my points about how to consume porn as ethically as you can. Don't worry about it too much. Most of the porn out there, in fact, the huge majority of porn out there in the world behind paywalls is ethically produced. The default standard for porn is ethically produced, but doing all of these things will, I think, pretty much guarantee you will never find yourself in the situation where you are watching someone who is not in love with their job, let alone someone who has been trafficked into their job. And of course, though in the course of my career I do not believe I've ever met anyone being trafficked, naturally all of us want to make sure that never ever happens on our watch. So thank you as always for watching. I will be back with more because I want to talk about how to be an ethical producer and how to be an ethical creator. I've got notes already, so I will be back. Thanks as always for watching. Bye bye now. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.